Guten Tag, wir sind VENGER. Ich bin James.
Ich bin Doug.
And we're here talking to Starkstrom. How did this whole thing start, Doug?
Meeting in a pub.
Meeting in a pub?
Yeah. Well, my son was playing a gig in town and
Brighton,
in an upstairs bar. And when I came downstairs, you were sat there and I think, aren't you Doug from SAXON?
Yes.
And we'd started a conversation there and then, really, just about music.
Yeah.
Generally.
We'd had a mutual friend for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And he kept, every time I'd seen him over the past like 10 years, he kept saying, "Oh, I must introduce you to Doug, because you're doing
and
music."
vice versa.
Right, oh right, I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah.
I think it was about some weeks after that, I'd mentioned to you that I'd been working on some stuff that was a bit more, what I would call more mainstream metal.
Right.
Which is a bit different from the background of stuff that I've done for years and years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know what you would. It's not kind of fast thrashy metal. It's quite doomy, moody.
The stuff that
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've done everything from like doom, black metal, and all that stuff. But one of my main things I'll always go back to is like Maiden, for example, and I just remember saying to you, I've got all these songs. I just don't know what to do with them. I'd like your opinion on.
Yeah, that's actually how it started, wasn't it? We just met for coffee and started listening to loads of your material.
Yeah, well, no, that was yours as well. I didn't.
Oh yes, yeah. No, I did bring stuff as well.
Yeah, I think Doug played me some stuff that he's been working on for commercial placement.
Oh yeah, for Audio Network, which are a media company that I write for.
Right, and
with Nigel.
Right, Nigel from SAXON, and I mean it was. Immediately, just pick up. I think he just picked up my guitar and just ripped a solo, and it was just like that could be right in the middle of a song.
Right.
Why don't we?
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff that you played me was very familiar territory.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. So that's how we started, we started working on a few songs. I think initially we didn't really know what to do, but and then you played me some of the new SAXON stuff, and I just thought, well, why don't we just do something along the lines of that kind of style? Maiden, SAXON, Judas Priest.
Yeah, classic metal.
Yeah. And then I kind of went away and came up with some ideas, and then your son was kind enough to give his time to it, Jamie.
Yeah, and we started recording ideas, putting stuff down. I remember leaving a few riffs with you, and then you sending them back a couple of hours later with the bones of a song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I'm in a new wave of British heavy metal band, at the time I kind of missed it really. The first kind of serious bands I listened to was Sabbath and Purple and Floyd, and although they're not, Floyd aren't heavy metal, but at that time all of those kind of it was all kind of classed as alternative progressive music.
Right.
So they were sort of under the same umbrella, but Sabbath was the first kind of heavy, what I would consider heavy metal bands that I liked. And then when it came round to the new wave of British heavy metal, I was kind of I still love rock music, but it sort of passed me by a bit. I noticed, obviously, Maiden, Saxon, Motorhead, but I kind of wasn't really heavily into that music at the time. So I don't have a lot to say about that. I kind of started to like those bands later on.
Right. Yeah.
You know, for me, I was still like in the old wave of British heavy metal, if you like.
Right. Yeah. New wave of British heavy metal for me. When I first started listening to music, I was probably about 11 or 12 when I started wanting to listen to music, and I didn't know what I wanted to listen to. So first thing I did was I raided my brother's record collection when he was out of the country to see if there was anything there that I liked, and he didn't have any new wave of British heavy metal, but I did find the Doors that I loved and a little bit of Black Sabbath. The first band I really got into was probably Maiden, and after about a year of being like the biggest Maiden fan I knew, which was not many, I then started getting into the much heavier stuff that was kind of contemporary to what was going on at the time. I mean, I was talking like early 90s, so I started listening to like the death metal and stuff like that, and but Maiden has always been there in the background. It's the one band I've never stopped listening to, probably Maiden and Sabbath, because, you know, I think they're the absolute pinnacle of what you can do, both from a business point of view. You know, the whole thing with like the sounds cynical, you know, but the whole marketing aspect is very cleverly put together. But at the same time, the music is just really well done at the same time. I always find, specifically Maiden, it's got quite a lot of folk music in there. I know.
Oh, definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't get that. Unless you're a musician, you don't really, or unless you know them well, you don't really get the folky aspect of what Maiden are doing. And I guess they took a lot of that dual guitar stuff as well from that, what was that 70s band? I saw them over in Shoreham. Wishbone Ash.
Oh,
yeah.
The
whole dual guitar.
The harmony, all the guitar harmony stuff. They were quite. Wishbone Ash were definitely a forerunner of that kind of that style. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw them about 10 years ago, and I just turned to my girlfriend and said, "This is basically Iron Maiden without the distortion pedals."
For me, that I think the thing that drew me towards American music was the obvious, like, being a guitar player was, you know, hearing Eddie Van Halen and you know that, I mean, just for sheer guitar ability, it was mind blowing at the time.
Right. It was like Richie Blackmore on steroids, kind of.
Yeah, but very, you know, really, really unique.
Right. Yeah.
Eddie was doing something that really nobody else had done before. So, although it is flamboyant, but as a guitar player, you can't not look at it and think, what just happened to guitar?
Yeah, it's like an earth changing, ground shaking kind of moment in music.
No, absolutely no contest whatsoever.
I mean, you can't see it here, but I mean, Doug took great pleasure in showing me his record player over there, which I think is probably it probably cost him more than everything I have related to music in my house, including my guitars and my equipment and everything. And you know, to the record.
Well, I got it. It's a Linn turntable, and they were like the. When I was a teenager, they were the sort of benchmark of like nobody except very rich people had a Linn turntable, and I didn't imagine that I would be able to afford one. But actually, I bought it very cheaply because I just got in when vinyl was starting to come back.
Right.
And
well, hold on a minute. It's all relative. What do you mean cheap?
Well,
for a record player, so I think 30 quid.
No, for a turntable that absolutely could cost you anything from $3,000 up to $30,000, I paid £600 for it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
second hand,
yeah.
and it was a bit restored from the guy that had he loved everything retro, so found it in that store, perfectly restored, and it was my son that got me back into vinyl because I'd given up with it and moved to CDs.
Yeah.
Still had some nice hi-fi equipment because not only am I a musician, but I absolutely love listening to music generally. So I want to hear it as it was sounding when it was recorded.
It was almost like you're in the studio.
Yeah, I want to be in there with it. But I then discovered that I think everything that was recorded probably from the 50s to the late 80s, or when CDs first took over, actually does sound better on vinyl.
Do you think that's because that was
recorded the format it was designed? It was made. What happened really? Well, I'm not totally positive about. I don't really know the facts, but I know that when CD became massively popular, there was a huge rush to get everything onto CD. Yeah. So not much care was taken
with the mastering
with the transfer.
Yeah.
So some CDs sound extremely flat,
right?
In comparison to the vinyl. But the thing is, you're not going to hear that unless you buy above a certain level of turntable. You just won't hear it. It will still sound good. But you're not gonna get that detailed. I mean, CDs win if you don't buy a decent turntable,
right?
Because it's just cleaner and more. If you buy a cheap turntable, it's just the same thing. By the time you get halfway through, the disc gets distorting and
But for me,
MP3s are useful.
Yeah,
definitely.
They're more portable, more socially
and
portable.
I still have an old iPod, and I love the fact that I can carry my album collection around with me.
5,000 albums.
When I'm on endless flights and stuff like that, I can suddenly think, I want to hear that record, and I've got it in a little box. So for that, it's amazing.
I mean, I'm not an audiophile. My entrance into owning music was largely recording tapes off other people and having them on a C90 cassette, and the quality.
I did love cassettes as well. When
I was they have their own sound.
When I was a teenager, and like our group of friends, we could all record each other's albums, and
which I guess was like the first form of kind of music piracy. You couldn't really do that before, and then.
Having said that, I still had the same attitude then, though. That
if you liked it,
if I liked it, I would go and buy the record. But the cassette was great to carry around or put in the car.
Right. I mean, for me, I had to sound like a complete audio moron, but everything I listen to is on my phone, and it's on MP3, and it's purely just
Well,
I can't afford £600 for a turntable. That's why.
Well, the thing is, I suppose it is more. Since then it's more expensive again now. But I mean, records are average £20 a go.
Yeah.
So
if,
why would you buy 30, 40 records and not invest in the player?
That's true.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I've only ever played small to medium-sized stages, I guess you'd say. Been lucky enough to play some festivals which are fairly good size. I'm primarily a writer of music, though. I'm not a live performer, I guess you'd say. But I'm always open to performing, but it's not my be-all and end-all. I love the creative process.
Yeah, I feel the same as that, actually.
Yeah.
As much as live gigs are great fun, and it's a very different vibe. Sometimes small gigs are great. The intimacy sometimes, and the fact that the bands sound close together. It sounds more like a force.
Yeah.
It can sound like that on big stages as well, but it's more difficult.
Right.
You know. But I think my favourite are the shows like probably the 4,000 to 5,000 size crowds to be fair, in the sort of early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, but Germany saved so many bands because so many, not only metal bands, but you know, Germany kept so many live gigs going where bands like Saxon could always have a decent crowd, whereas in the UK there was a hardcore of metal fans that have always been there, but it did take a dip, and big shows were harder to do, and tours were harder to do. You could do maybe, like when I joined Saxon in '95, we could still fill up the Astoria in London, and we could do maybe 4 or 5 good gigs in the UK, but not a decent tour. Not you know, because metal became so
unfashionable. Basically.
Yeah, unfashionable. Yeah, completely. Yeah. And then it grew again. So it's gone from like playing small clubs to being playing Wembley again.
The whole AI art in music.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a friend who runs a label and a distro and stuff. He's a writer as well, and a music journalist. Sorry, and he said that VENGER single. He said the first thing he asked me is that artwork AI? And I said, well, mostly. You know, because I had to, you know, do some editing. And we're only talking a single here. You know, it's a single of a band that don't have a label or any budget. And he said, well...
I read those comments.
Yeah, he said, you should be very careful releasing some music with AI art if it's metal. And I said, why? And he said, well, because, you know, there's a very big kind of backlash against that.
There is, because we've, on the new Saxon album, the first video we released was us performing, basically like a normal rock video, but the next couple were one wasn't. Roswell was cut with live performance and some old footage of UFOs and
You're talking about the one about the guillotine, Madame Guillotine?
Madame Guillotine, and let's just talk about that because my brain's failing and I'm jet lagged. But I couldn't believe how many comments there were about was the video AI. Yeah. You know, and to me it's like
it's a tool.
I don't understand why they're so against it. I mean, I do understand that, you know, okay, I've read the comments.
Artists are being out of work. I understand that.
I get all that, but it's like to actually not even comment on the song at all, and just like, oh, I don't like it because it's got AI artwork. I don't really understand that. One of the things I have thought about for quite a few years really with people's responses to art and music, I mean, everybody's ready to criticise, but the bottom line is, do you like it or not? Do you know what I mean? Well, why are you going to you can pull it apart for the sake of it, but art and music is about communicating with people and nothing else really. And so anything, the question you always have to ask yourself is, does it communicate with me? Yeah. You know,
when me and Doug had the songs all pretty much together, I spoke to Sven, who I'm recording with in the band NATTEHIMMEL, and he's a drummer. He's totally capable of doing what we're doing, and I know he hadn't really done the type of stuff before, and I thought he might really like it. So, Yeah, we've got Sven on the drums, who's over in Norway. He records over there in Kristiansand, and then we have Franz, who I heard about because well, he's a friend of Mike there behind the camera. He introduced me to a band during lockdown online. He said, "Oh, my friend's band's just signed to Napalm Records," and I said, "Oh right, what kind of stuff is this?" Now at the time, my head's in some other style that I'm working on at the time, but it did like, you know, log it in my brain, and then Doug was on tour with Saxon recently, and he said, "Oh, you know, I played the tracks to the guys, and you know, they say, you know, the tracks are great, but you know, your demo vocals." It's not a style of music I generally would do vocals for, you know.
No, and we did decide. We did say from the outset, really, this speaking from experience, that there's a very small margin of people that will like it because the guitar playing's good or the drumming's good or anything. Songs live or die on the vocal.
Yeah, absolutely.
If people
correct.
don't feel the vocal or get off on it, even if it's decent, you're failing from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there are a small number of people that will maybe overlook the vocal because they like the guitar riffs or they like the solo or they like whatever. But that is a very small minority.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell a song, the whole picture. So it's only as good as that's not. I'm not being rude to you, but it's as good as it's only as good as the weakest part. You know? And there was nothing actually wrong with your vocal. The thing is like I think because we've in a way, because we're trying to do that kind of traditional metal thing, that's not my vocal style. We needed someone who could do. Yeah. You would listen to it and you think, I'm immediately thinking Priest, Saxon, Maiden, King Diamond. King Diamond's something that comes up a lot with Franz's vocals. But I mean, the band that you introduced me to was Roadwolf, and I just thought, you know, that you know, this might come in handy at some point down the line, and sure enough, it did, because you know, Franz ran to the rescue, and you know, he made it a 4-piece, and you know, we're now finishing all the stuff. I mean, I think we've got 4 songs totally done. I've got another 2 that you still yet to kind of say if they're any good or not, and then we'll get on with, you know, a couple more. But you know, I think we're definitely working towards like getting an album done, irrespective. Yeah, I think we've probably already have enough material floating around, more than enough. So it's just arranging it, putting it together, and recording it. You know,
yeah. So. But you know, I mean, I think the whole thing about VENGER is, you know, we're not doing this for any other reason than we just love what we're doing. Yeah, and we love metal.
Yeah, exactly that.